My like publishing student nerd is coming out really hard in this video, but hi, hello. So if you guys are new here, my name is Victoria and I make lifestyle, college, I make a ton of different videos on here. So today I wanted to sit and talk about some of the books that I've been reading in quarantine. So if you've watched some of my other videos, you will know that I am an English major and I basically go to school to sit around and talk about books all day long, and it's a dream. So I want to talk about some of the books that I've been reading while we have been in lockdown. So starting off with poetry. Poetry is probably like my top genre that I gravitate towards. Like if you set me loose in a bookstore, I'd probably go straight towards the poetry section. So the first book, and disclaimer, some of these I did have to read for class. I wouldn't be talking about them if I didn't actually enjoy them and like actually enjoy reading them and discussing them for my classes. So the first poetry collection that I've been reading is The Business of Fancy Dancing by Shomar Alexie. And what I really like about this is not only is he just like really great at like the craft of poetry and just like form and like connecting all of the different sections and all the different poems. The book is split into, I believe it's three sections. Yeah, three sections: Distances, Evolution, and Crazy Horse Dreams. And he just has this really beautiful way of thematically connecting all of them. A lot of the collection is focused on like his experience as a Native American person and kind of Native American identity and what that means, and also just kind of like different kind of cultural and generational gaps, which are all things that I am so interested in. And as a Hispanic person and as an immigrant, those are things that are really important to me. I just think it's really, really interesting and really beautifully written. So the second poetry collection that I've been reading is It's Not Magic by John Sands. And this was actually a National Poetry Series winner. And again, same kind of thing. He does a lot of really interesting things with form. And I really find that it really makes me think. Looking at a lot of these poems on the page, you can really see how Sands plays with form and kind of takes you out of what you traditionally expect a poem to be, out of that traditional stanza structure. And through breaking this form, he really makes you reconsider how you're approaching poetry, how you're reading poetry, and he makes it so that you can really gain a lot of different perspectives on one poem and a lot of different readings based on which structure you decide to read it with. And with poetry, I always think it's really nice to read it loud. So I'm going to read from his poem called Ode to My Mother's Hip. And I don't know, I just think it really helps you get a sense of his style, his voice, and the kind of themes of the poems. I'm going to read the first two stanzas of this poem. My body remembers you from the inside. The femurs parted like trombones in a backup band. How she screamed with no choice but to accept. We're on a bridge, and my mom has to put an arm through my arm. She isn't the kind of person who appreciates being over-asked if she's all right. You're wrestling her to the concrete. She hangs on to me more with each step, less when she knows she's doing it. And that's kind of what I mean about how like just heartfelt and like emotional all the poems are. And I just think he has such a way with words and such a way of really playing with poetry in a way that just like makes the reader connect and makes the reader think. For nonfiction books that I've been reading, first one is The 7 Deadly Sins for Women and Girls by Mona Altahawy. It's kind of a tongue twister of a title, but it's exactly what it sounds like. Mona Altahawy is a feminist writer and contributor to a bunch of different publications. She's written for the New York Times. She's written for a bunch of different places. This is actually her second book. She wrote another one which I haven't read yet, but she has written other books similar to this and pretty like pretty much like the title says, she makes the argument for these different 7 deadly sins that are necessary for women and girls to kind of rise up in the world. The sins are anger, attention, profanity, ambition, power, violence, and lust. And what I really like about this book is because Simona El-Tawi is actually Egyptian American, and she kind of comes from a Muslim background. So because she has traveled so many different places in the world, so because she has this kind of international context, the book is really written in a way that emphasizes intersectional feminism, which I love. And I just feel like not only is the book inspiring and just like really well written, I do feel like I learned so much, and I learned stories from women all over the world. But yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about this book, is just like the really intersectional approach that she takes. And then the second nonfiction book that I've been reading is called Promised Land by Jay Perini, and the subtitle is 13 Books That Changed America. Again, pretty straightforward. It's pretty much a literary history of what he argues are 13 of the most influential books that have shaped America. And he basically breaks down chapter by chapter kind of the publishing history of the book and kind of how it came about. He talks about the author's background and how that influenced the writing of the book. He does spend a big chunk of each of the chapters summarizing key parts of the book and like kind of analyzing them. And then at the end, he talks about kind of the cultural impact the book has had. But for me, who is just like such a big book nerd, and like sometimes I walk into bookstores, tell me if this happens to anybody else, but sometimes I walk into bookstores and I get like a little bit of anxiety because I'm like, there's so many books here and I want to read all of them, but like there's no time for me to possibly read every single book that's ever written. Does anybody else get like anxiety around like all the books that they haven't read yet? Maybe that's just me, or maybe I'm crazy. But what I really like about this is that some of these books I have read and some of them I haven't, and it really kind of helps me feel like I get a grasp on some of the most influential books in American history. It helps me feel like I understand the context of a book and I understand the cultural impact of a book, even if I haven't read it, or even if I haven't read it in a long time. So it kind of helps me to like ease a little bit of that anxiety. And then it also kind of opens my eyes to some books that I haven't read before, which is really exciting. And the other thing that I really like about it is he kind of talks through all of these books through a frame of what he calls Promised Land, which is why that's the title of the book. He kind of talks about how like everything in American literature is kind of working towards or moving towards the sense of this promised land. And so within that, he kind of taps into like American mythology and just like why Americans tell certain stories about themselves and like what that's done to American culture. And that is like just a huge thing that I'm so interested in. I've written so many papers in school around like American mythology, and kind of like how different aspects of literature, different aspects of American mythology have like constructed what it means to be American. Again, super, super nerdy, but if anyone else is like a huge book nerd and loves kind of literary history stuff, this is really good because it's not too dense. Like, obviously it's not the lightest read in the world, like you're not gonna, whiz through it in a day, but he talks about all these books in a way that is really digestible, and you don't feel like you're reading, like a textbook. Like you don't feel like you're reading something too dense. So highly recommend. And then last but not least, my fiction picks. You'll start to see a pattern here, just because I feel like with everything going on in the world, I've been reading a lot of just really light fiction, and just things that are like warm and happy and fun. So along with that, I've been reading the To All the Boys series again. Obviously these blew up once the movie came out, which sound off in the comments, how did we feel about the second movie? I have to say, like, after reading the books, there's so many things that I feel like the movie missed out on. But these have just been so fun, and these are kind of the opposite to the preemie. These are like books that I feel like I have just whizzed through, and like I could sit and read this in like 24 hours, and it's just, it's just so happy. They're just quick, easy reads, and when like the whole world is falling apart, sometimes you just like really need some lighthearted like YA romance. So my next fiction read has been The New Girl Code by Nikki Smith, and the premise and the story of this book is just super cute. It's more of a middle grade novel, I would say. It's a lot like, if anyone ever read those like surviving middle school books, I think that's what they were called, but it's kind of just like cute, like day-to-day drama and stuff with like her family and her friends. But the really cool thing about the book and kind of the whole premise is that the main character, Nikki, codes her own fashion app at 15, and it's kind of meant to encourage girls to see careers in tech as attainable, and to see code and just different things like that as approachable and attainable, which is so like heartwarming to hear as someone that kind of works in tech or works like tech adjacent. And like when I was 15, I never would have thought that like coding an app was something that was something that was attainable for me. I went to college and learned how to code and learned how to do graphic design and web design, but I just think it's really beautiful that this book kind of speaks to girls and like makes it known that these are not just fields for men, and it's so special to me. And the spreads in here too. My like book design publishing student nerd is coming out really hard right now. But the spreads are so beautiful, and like all of the illustrations are so beautiful. And it also comes with all of these different quotes from famous women, and they're just like cute little motivational quotes. This one is from Chloe Kim, and it says, "The one thing I learned is to just give everything a shot. You don't want to live in regret." And yeah, it just like quotes and different illustrations, and it's just a really, really well put together book and a really well put together design. But this one says, "I'm not bossy, I'm the boss," and it's a Beyonce quote. Anyways, super cute, super fun, lighthearted read. That is it. Pretty short, but I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the things that I have been reading and just do something that was kind of like fun and lighthearted this week. So if you guys check out any of these books, or if you've read any of these before, make sure to leave a comment below. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.